Oh, what's going on, guys? It's Radar here. First of all, welcome back. It's been a long time since I've made a video. Actually, the last one was the 2015 Bathurst 1000 video, so it's been a very long time since video. But we are back, and we are coming to you with the Season 2 of 2016 highlights of the build. And of course, the three main highlights for me are the three new cars that are worthy of driving. There's also the Mazda in there, but no one cares about that really, unless you like to lose iRating in massive chunks. But as you can see on the screen, we've got the Formula Renault 2.0 just doing some laps at Interlagos. So I'm just going to go through each car and just give you a little bit of my first impressions on them. Done a few laps. Most of my laps actually been in the Formula Renault and the Audi. Haven't done too many laps in the Merc, but I've done enough to get a kind of a feel for it. And then I'll just cover off on some of the other major points in the build as we go along. But the Formula Renault, we'll start with that. As you can see on screen, it's essentially the replacement to the Star Mazda. 7-speed sequential transmission. It's a very, very smooth gearbox. It's a very fun car to drive. It's on edge a little bit, but it's definitely kind of a beginner's entry level car to open world racing, so it'll fit perfectly into the Star Mazda mold. Star Mazda is still going to be around, but this car definitely is the replacement for the Star Mazda. So we'll go and jump in the car and just do a few laps, just a bit of a talk and drive in it. So we're in Lagos just for week 13, and from the cockpit you'll see the mirrors you can't quite see them, they're kind of cut off in the center of the screen, but the mirrors are long and skinny, but they still give you a good view, and the steering wheel is actually really easy to see. I mean, the display's pretty clear. It's a nice cockpit to sit in, and the sound.
Got one on your right.
Very
all clear,
nice
all clear.
sounding car. It's a 4-cylinder engine, but it's got a very nice. It revs high to about 7,500 RPM at the shift.
You've got a slow car on the left.
And through all the
Go right.
7 gears, it just sounds beautiful from inside the car. It's a bit quiet outside, but that's just because it's a small engine. But inside the car, it sounds like you're going quicker than you are. So just going to have to negotiate some of this traffic. So we're using the medium downforce baseline setup just for these laps at Interlagos. And as you can see just there, another feature of the build is that you can actually see the smoke of the cars in front of you when they slide and stuff every time now. So he had a little brake lock up, so you can see the smoke from brake lock ups now on your car and on their car as well. So like I was saying, the gearbox, it's very smooth, very responsive. The only issue I have found with it is sometimes the third to second gear change isn't as smooth as you'd like, and that's just because it's got a little bit of protection put into it and then it won't let you over the engine, so you can't really engine brake the car. The view out of the car, it's pretty clear. I mean, you've got the big bulge in the center, but that's just what you expect in a Formula car. It's a very cold track, and you're losing it at turn 1 there. It looks embarrassing. So all in all, this is very much it's an easy car to drive. Easy to drive, but very difficult to push.
Got a slow car on the left.
That's just
Go right.
because it's...
Go right.
You need to be going quick enough to utilise all the downforce it's got. Otherwise, it's just a mess. This kind of reminds me loosely of a Formula 3 from Stock Car Extreme, but... You got to keep in mind that this is over in Europe, an entry-level car. You come out of karts into one of these. Similar to kind of the Formula 4, but not quite.
Got one on your right.
And they're actually quite robust cars as well. I'm not going to run into anybody in this session, but did host a bit of fun the other night, and we were able to send it and kind of hit a wheel into a side pod, and you get away with it. They're very robust little cars. But fun little fact, if you take the nose off, you can actually see through the footwell out the front of the car. So I will just be quiet for a lap, and we'll just go for a hot lap on board the Formula Renault 2.0. Just enjoy the sounds.
We have a slow car on the right. Go left.
So there we have it, an onboard lap with the Formula Renault 2.0. You'll be seeing a lot of this car probably throughout the next season on this channel. I'm doing the Formula Renault Australia Championship, which is the replacement for the SMAC series.
Car on your left.
So I'll be looking to run in that
Still
fairly
there.
early, so
Hold your line.
you'll probably see a bit more of this car as we go. One thing I forgot to mention is I am using the DX11 that they put into the build.
Clear on the left. Car on your
Go
left.
mate, I'm
all
slowing
clear,
up
all
for a
clear.
reason.
Got one on your left. All clear, all clear.
Trying to make the spotter shut up. But running DX11, much smoother on triple screen displays than on singles. Recording now, I'm getting 80, 90. Usually on DX9 I'll be getting around 60. And then when I'm not recording I'm getting 150 plus when it's me and other cars. So definitely a massive improvement with the same settings on DX11 as DX9. So if you're running triples, definitely run DX11. If you're not, it's personal preference, but just from what I've read around the traps, that it's not as good on single screen setups as it is on triples, the improvement that is. But there's not a big noticeable difference in the way things look, it's just how it runs a lot smoother. It just seems to be optimized better for the newer system. So we'll head off and get into these new GT3 cars. We'll get into the Mercedes first, the Thundering V8, and then we'll go into the Audi with its beautiful V10. So we'll be back in a second. Welcome back, and we're in the Mercedes at Nürburgring in GP circuit, because it's probably the better of the two. Nürburgring, I hate the Nordschleife, it's an overrated circuit, but that's another point. Mercedes at the GT3 car, definitely a very nice sounding car, and we hear it in the late afternoon time of day. Another thing iRacing added as well, ability to have a choice from 3 times a day, so essentially 3 different skyboxes that affect the track in different ways. But one thing, again, we're running DX11 here, it's running a lot smoother than Nürburgring than previously. Again, still recording and getting 70 FPS in the arena section. Previously I'd be getting about 30, so just on that point again, that DX11 has made an improvement. Everyone who's crying foul on the forums that it's ruined my frames per second, I beg to differ. I think it's actually done a lot to it to improve it. So anyway, onto the car. This is the front, unlike the Audi, this is front engined, a V8 6-speed, sequential gearbox, again paddle shift as per all GT3s, and the sound is very, very throaty. I wish they had this sort of sound for our V8 supercar, because this is just an amazing car to listen to. If I could just listen to it and not drive it, I would do that. But besides the sound, that's probably one of the best aspect of this car. The cockpit's still pretty good as well. The display out of the two GT3s is my preferred display, just the way the lights come on and how you can read everything pretty quickly on the dash as well. It's not a big white screen like the Audi, it's a bit darker and is offset. It's just nicer. The lights on the side though are just kind of confusing. I don't need to know that my low beam is on because I can't even adjust that. And then it's just telling me whether ABS is on and traction control is on or not. It's a bit nearly lost it, made a fool of ourselves there. But you definitely feel with this car that you're almost like you're sitting in the boot. The front of the car is so long. Like you could play a football match on the front of this car. It's that wide and long. I don't know why it's so long. It's just a trait of Mercedes GT3 cars, that the front is very long and you sit very far to the back of the car. You do the same with the Z4, but this is a next level compared to the Z4. And you definitely feel that kind of elongated front. Out of the two, this car, I feel like I have to wrestle it through corners a little bit more and force it through on the baseline setup. You can tune that out of the car. It's a diff. They've done a funny thing with the diff settings. It's basically at 0. So it's all on the coast side and there's none on the load, on the acceleration side of it. But again, even on baseline compared to the Audi, this does feel like I'm wrestling it and forcing it to go places more than in the Audi. If you don't tell, I like the Audi more. It's a car, I'll be racing next season in SEK GT3 series in Australia, so keep an eye out for that on here as well. That's on the Sunday nights when I'm not racing Premier Series. I'll be in there in the R8. But this car is definitely a beautiful car, beautiful sounding. It looks nice, not the prettiest car, but that's Mercedes trait. The front end is a bit fugly. No, not the most beautiful looking car. The back end as well. Yeah, alright. Not what I can do with the back of the car, but it's pretty flat. The rear wing is pretty massive as well. But all in all, iRacing have done a brilliant job with all three cars. I haven't driven the Mazda yet, but I can say from all three cars the release has been pretty good. They all feel very good. But I'll go for a quick onboard lap with me not talking, then we'll jump in the setup screen just to show you a few differences. So here we go, a lap with the GP circuit. There we have it, a lap on board Mercedes GT3. Beautiful sounding car, but the most intriguing thing I've found is actually in the garage screen. The way they've done the spring rates, and there you get to have a nice look at the front of the car there. Looks alright. And then there's the rear of the car. But the garage screen, this is the interesting part, spring sets. So there's no longer you get to choose the spring rate. You have 3 sets of springs, you choose the set, so 275, and that's throughout the whole car. So if I click set 3 here, it goes to set 3 all around, changes all 4. Set 2, again, changes all 4, the same with set 1. So it's something that's unique to this car. I believe I haven't driven the McLaren, or the BMW since the build, but the Audi is different entirely to the way this is done, and then the bump rubbers is also different. That's new to the Mercedes. That's part of the unique, and they've called a traction control ASR. Don't know what that stands for, but just remember it's traction control. And they've done all these D things for HE roll bar blades. But that was my main points with the setup screen for the Mercedes. As you can just see, we'll have a look at it going around the circuit there. Definitely the optimizations come into effect and they're running a lot smoother on the X11. But we'll go ahead and jump in the Audi, in my opinion, with the better car, better sounding, and it sounds like it's farting. Like, oh well, we'll jump in the Audi now and we'll go for a few laps and just give you first impressions on that. Welcome back for the third and final car in this Season 2 build impressions, which is the Audi R8 GT3, which is by far my favourite car in the build. So we'll go out and crack out a few laps and then we'll finish off with a flyer, just so you get a feel for the full sounds of this car. So it's a V10, unlike the Mercedes, which is a V8, and it's also, as per usual, the 6-speed sequential gearbox. And gearbox again, very smooth, very good, as you'd expect in GT3. Now this car is mid-engined compared to the Mercedes, which was front-engined, and it's notably shorter. So shorter and not as long. So it's very close to the ground, which brings one interesting handling characteristic out in this car, which is its hate for curbs. It does not like entry curbs, so it's not a great car for curb hopping, as I'll show at the final chicane in a few minutes, well, when I get there. So you can be tuned out. It's a bit like the V8 with its pogo, except this time it grabs it and spins the car. You can tune it out. The iRacing baseline, the dampers are a little bit stupid. Because this is the car that I played with the setup on, compared to, I haven't touched the Merc setup at all because I don't anticipate racing it. So I know a bit more about the setup of this car from just a couple of days playing with it than the Mercedes. So the dampers that iRacing give you in the baseline aren't great. The settings, you've got a range of 40 plus, so you got from 0 to negative 42 on the low speed side, and then 0 to negative 48 on the high speed side. So basically I whacked them in the middle of all those boundaries for all around, and the car instantly went 2/10 quicker on the same spring rates, and then tuned the dampers from there with various methods, and the car you find about 3/10. So there's a lot of time in the damper settings in this car. So I'll just show you the curb issue here. I'm going to purposely hop these curbs. Just pulls it round, does that. So looking like a retard on purpose, spinning the car. So avoid curbs in this car, unless you can tune it out, which you can, sort of, but still be careful with curbs in this car. Other than that, it does drive quite well. I'm just warming up the tyres so that I'm going to get a half decent lap out because the track's cold. I did the same with the Mercron, so I got a decent time out of it. But you don't have to wrestle this car around as much because it's mid-engine. It does turn a lot better initially. Doesn't like to stay in the corner as long. It does sort of push on exit, but that's down to the way they've got the diff as well set up in the baseline. It's again that retarded, lots on the decel side, nothing on the acceleration side of the car. But other than that, the car still drives very well. As you notice in my field of view, you barely see the steering wheel. That's because it's really low. I'll zoom out the field of view, so excuse retarded viewing. To be able to see the steering wheel, that's how far out I gotta get. And this looks absolutely retarded. So it's very low down the steering wheel compared to the Merc, where I could see basically where the hand would sit all the time. Whereas now I only see the wheel when I put a fair bit of lock in it. Which again is, if you like seeing the steering wheel, which I kind of do, and that's why I run with it on even though I run triples. It was just a way of me knowing if my wheel and the game are lined up. And also my field of view is right, so where my hands go, basically the wheel matches, so they kind of shadow each other now. But if you like seeing the wheel and you've got triples and you're really close, you're not going to see it. Single screen, I don't know, I haven't run that in ages. But the display is another talking point of difference between the Merc and the Audi. It's bright white in the Audi, it really stands out, and the shift lights go from left to right. I prefer it when they meet in the middle, so I can still be looking straight ahead and not having to spot lights on another side of the screen. But it's still laid out pretty well, but one noticeable problem, so I'll sit here on 165-ish on the display. Let's get that on the display. Yeah, 165, iRacing's telling me I'm doing 162. So there's a bit of a discrepancy in that. But again, it's got the same sort of stuff, TC settings, ABS settings, gear, lap difference, and all that good stuff. But we're going to go for a hot lap now. We'll wind this thing up, get a lap out, and then we'll just go through a few final talking points before we run out this video. So here we go, hot lap of the Nürburgring. completely missed that braking point. There we go, hot lap. Still not too bad considering I basically ran off the road at the end of that lap there. So we'll go and jump in the pits, and I'm just going to go through the replay and we'll be able to see one of the new features in the build, and then we'll just round out with a few talking points. So we'll go back to the start of the lap, and as you can see, flashing headlights. Not as noticeable as you'd think. A lot of people were concerned that it was going to bug the living daylights and everybody, just some dickhead behind you constantly flashing his headlights. They're only on certain cars, and they're generally the GT3s and the sports cars. As you listen to those beautiful external sounds of the roaring V10 in the Audi. But you can't really see them at daytime, so I haven't noticed anyone who's actually flashed their lights at me then flashing them, unless they were right at my gearbox. But they're still a nice feature to have, especially for AC, the longer endurance races that I'm a part of. It will be handy for HPDs to be able to flash their lights if people can't see you coming, because they've also toned down the lens flare that you get on the headlights during the daytime, so they're not blinding the living daylights out of you in a mirror. Another one is the balanced performance between all 4 GT3 cars that will be run in the Pro Series. Pretty much bang on. We've been doing a bit of testing over at TTL, and they're pretty much identical in lap times on setups. So balanced performance, iRacing, thumbs up for once you've got it right when you've released new cars. There's no God car at this point. McLaren seems to have a bit of a straight line advantage, but that's always been a thing as I run off the road like a retard. But other than that, there's not a lot that happened in the new build other than the 4 cars being released. All the tracks got a grid and pit stall size increase, so there's more of them to accommodate for shared pit stalls. Another one is that dirt and grime now build up on the tyres. It did previously, but it wasn't modelled graphically, so now you can actually see it. Previously it was just done in an underlying level, but now you can actually see it. Other than that, there isn't really a lot of change. We just keep rolling some laps as well, so that you're not just staring at nothing. So yeah, not a lot really going on, which is unfortunate. The V8 supercar, from my point of view, they changed the window tint. Massive upgrade there. It's a big talking point in the V8 community at the moment, is that it's getting left behind. We're still on the V5 tyre. We haven't got any of the cool Gucci stuff that the new cars have got, but I can understand in this build considering they pumped out 4 cars. Great effort though from iRacing's build release, one of the smoothest I've experienced in my years with iRacing. The slide went down when they said the slide was going down, and it was up before they said it was going to be up. And their offline test drive that they had set up worked. I didn't use it, but from what I've heard, worked pretty much perfectly. So kudos to iRacing, they're finally getting build releases right in the way they deploy them. Other than that, not a lot else happened in the build. Pretty quiet one on all other fronts, other than DX11, which is definitely a massive improvement for me personally. So, on a little update side, I will be back in the V8 Supercars and official series pretty much full time next season. I've had a schedule change here, which allows me to race on Monday nights a lot easier. So you should see some videos downrange on that, just depending on what I do with teammates and all that sort of stuff. Whether I want to talk to them during the race or not will depend on whether I release a video live or as a replay. You'll have Formula Renault Australian Championship, or FRAC. Got to be careful how I say that because that can come out weird. Definitely on a Thursday night I'll be chucking out some of those videos, and then the SEK GT3 series will be on the off weeks from Premier Series. I'll be in that, and you'll catch a video from there. So you should see me back releasing videos at a more regular interval than I have been over the last basically 5-6 months. That was just due to me wanting a break. I didn't find this fun anymore. Sort of found the groove again and wanted to do it. So yeah, I got to give a big shout out as well to Brett Stiles from Hybrid Racing Simulations. Ordered a sweet Z1 dash from him. Well, HRS dash is just his Z1 screen with his finish on it. So if you want some sick sim gear and you're in Australia, definitely check him out. Definitely bang for your buck, and customer service is mint. It's been a long time member of the Australian community, and the products he produces are top of the line. It would not be out of place in a race car. So definitely I'll be showing some pictures of the dash when it arrives in a couple of days. I'll be chucking that up in one of the videos. Definitely check him out on Facebook, just Hybrid Racing Simulations. But other than that, that's all from me. So thanks for watching, guys, and I'll catch you on the flip side.